All right, welcome back to Honest Voice Podcast. My name's Todd.
I'm Carolsue. Today we're going to be talking about something that causes more damage than pretty much anything else in communication, which is that the belief that we are all taught how to communicate the same way.
Yeah, this is a really big deal for us today. This particular podcast is probably one of our favorites. Yeah, we bring up this kind of information when we do crisis intervention training, but hopefully those of you that know that this all evolved from crisis intervention training realize that the podcast is not about police training.
Right.
Yeah. This is all about communication. We just want to stress that the crisis intervention training was the foundation for learning that there are even different ways to communicate. Like, we had no idea that these communication styles existed, but that was the impetus for us to start doing the research that we did and learn that there are so many diverse ways of communication. This particular show is probably going to give you the best examples of how diverse we really are. And starting off with one of the many flawed assumptions that we have is that we all speak the same. And we brought that up in previous episodes. We have all different backgrounds. We were all raised in different environments. We've all had exposure to different types of people. We learned our cues from others. And honestly, the reality is that none of us really speak the same. We brought this up in a previous episode. We all sort of go on broken English.
That's true.
But we make the assumption that we speak exactly the same, understand things just the same. And it's really those assumptions that get in the way of good communication and being able to find a compatible style.
Yeah. So one of the things that happens when we don't take the opportunity at the beginning of a relationship to maybe set some ground rules or some expectations, or even just learn a little bit about each other's communication style, is we bring our own assumptions to the table, and we might assume we mean the same thing or have the same intentions, and we might really misinterpret the way our friends and partners are interacting with us in a way that leaves us feeling hurt or confused or disengaged when it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, I was reading an article a while ago that said one of the biggest problems we have in communication is that for some reason we fill in deficiencies. If we don't know what's going on, we make up something. That's what we do. We create these assumptions based on no information sometimes. And it's really interesting to watch because I very annoyingly sometimes when people make a rule or say, and that's the way it is, and I'm like, where did that come from? So they're like, what do you mean, where did that come from? That's the rule. And I'm like, yeah, no, actually that's an opinion that you've now established as your way. But all those ways are changeable, and some of us get pretty rigid.
That's true.
And I'm going off on a mild tangent here, but I want to say that some of us are pretty rigid because we have this issue with if we do it another way, then we think our current way is wrong.
Yes.
And we hate facing the fact that we've done something wrong when we really should just release that altogether. I mean, if we could have a mentality of not just curiosity, but also like, I don't really know anything, I'm just doing my best, that would set a lot of people free.
That's true.
And people say, you didn't know that? Like we've said in other episodes. Say, no, I didn't. And be very proud of it. But now I'm learning it.
That's right.
I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the power of just curiosity. And instead of coming into it believing that I have these expectations and I want my conversations to go this way, be curious about the other people that you're talking with and how they communicate. And that'll put you in the mind frame to learn more and understand better and have fewer missteps.
Yeah, and like we said in a previous episode, Carolsue and I have developed a style for our relationship. So I had my own style of communication. Carolsue had her own style of communication. It doesn't mean anybody needs to change or adapt or comply with somebody else's style, but when you're in a relationship, you create your own style of communication, and that's the way you need to look at it.
It's true.
I've had so many conversations with people that are making comments like, she's trying to change me, and sometimes two people are just trying to find a better way because we are more different than we are alike. And that's another thing that goes with what I said before. A lot of times we feel that differences have to create a right or wrong.
Absolutely right.
Like the dishwasher one. There's not always a right and a wrong. It's two different ways, but people that have deep insecurities, and that comes from like a lot of heavy criticism as a child, things like that. So we have built that defensiveness in the way we perceive things. But most things that we think are right or wrong are not right or wrong. They're just different. And that is something we'd like to try to get people to put at the forefront of their mind. We talked also about our styles in communication. Like if you say something to help somebody, and the impact is different from your intent,
Yes.
that's not on you. That's just another opportunity to learn a communication style. Like if you ask me a question and I say, well, this is the way you do it, and you look at me sort of hurt, and I'm like, what? I gave you the information. And it's like, well, you're really blunt about it or harsh about it. That's something I need to learn now. Like maybe my tone does come off as blunt. I don't need to say, no, I wasn't. I just gave you the information that I gave you.
Yeah.
And those things are going to change based on moods, hormonal levels.
Yes.
And these are real. These are real reasons that interpretations get misunderstood in a lot of cases, because we are always changing. So even if you learn a new style and it works right now, it may trip up.
Yeah.
1 out of 5 times. And then you learn, okay, well, today's a bad day. Had a lot of stress. I got yelled at by my boss, so maybe I'm a little sensitive than I normally am, which is also valid. You know,
Yes.
telling somebody
Yes.
you're being too sensitive doesn't suddenly make them go, oh, okay, you're right. No, I'll take this completely different now.
That's right.
So one thing that we always preach also is calling out somebody's behavior to make them feel bad about it doesn't help the conversation. And it doesn't help them change either. So that's a big deal also.
Yeah. Tends to just increase the level of shame, and that doesn't help anybody move forward.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there are lots of different ways in which people communicate differently. There are generational differences, there are cultural differences.
Yeah.
But today we're going to focus on a lot of the common misunderstandings between men and women.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So just like simple things, like I said before, I said what I meant, and I don't understand why you're upset. I gave you the answer. And to the listener, that could be like a dismissal or not really considering my impact because of the day she's having. Or if I see something and you don't get it, and I tell you, well, I thought you'd understand because we're close. And that doesn't mean that you're not close. It just means that there was a trip up right there. And assigning that they need to understand it and then forcing them to feel bad because they didn't
Yes.
doesn't suddenly develop that trust or make it any better. If I'm over elaborating right here.
No, not at all.
And then sometimes it could be a test to see if somebody's listening, which we really want to stay away from tests. We don't want to do any kind of performance-based things. Or honest voice.
Yeah. No games.
So we don't play games. We say what we mean.
Yeah. In general, we think it's really helpful for all relationships that if you're trying to address communication differences, a little understanding is helpful, and also giving people that you care about the benefit of the doubt. So if there is a misunderstanding, we're going to try to talk today a little bit about some of those differences, how we're trained differently, how we are raised differently, and how those things can evolve. But it's always helpful in a healthy relationship to give each other the benefit of the doubt instead of jumping into, well, he just doesn't understand me or she just doesn't want to hear that. Stay curious, see if you can understand where these differences might be coming from. So let's talk a little bit about what those differences are.
This might sound like we're trying to identify gender stereotypes, but these are research-based communication styles based on gender. So we're going to be talking primarily based on our experience.
Yeah.
And with our genders, male and female, Carolsue and I are. So we can't speak to other genders, but we can tell you from our experience and our research how we communicate. Hopefully these will be effective across the board in some cases. And an interesting thing we'll tell you, even though some of these are traits that are geared toward men and some geared toward women, they shift. So from a men's perspective, one of the things that we're sort of drilled into our heads is that we're taught to solve it, not share. We just fix problems. That's
right.
what we focus on. We don't just share for the sake of learning each other, which is really, really important in a relationship. I share my ideas all the time. Sometimes they're off the wall and they're weird. I'm like, you know what I was just thinking? And then, of course, I'll make comments sometimes like, what is wrong with me? Why did my brain go there? We're also taught that any kind of emotional exploration is problematic or exposes you to risk. It's another typical male trait. You know, you brought up generational, and that's a really good point because stuff like that goes all the way back before the Second World War.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a stoic bunch
That's
of
right.
work-oriented, focus, blood, sweat, and tears at the job to bring home the bacon for the family, and that is the focus
Talk
of
about
a man.
feelings.
Yeah. It taught that silence is strength, that when you're quiet, which goes back to what I was saying in a previous episode. If you're silent, that means you're not talking. And if you're making statements like, well, I can't talk about it, or I don't want to talk about it, that's a deficiency.
Yeah.
That's identifying a weakness in your coping skills where you should be able to talk about anything. There should not be anything that you say you can't do that you already do. We all talk, right? So every topic should be open for discussion. But what we've done in society is that we've made ourselves believe that talking about something that could hurt us makes us vulnerable, so we're not going to put out anything at all. But really what we need to do is we need to strengthen those coping skills. So when we do talk about this stuff, the vulnerability is much less than what we've identified it to normally be.
Yeah.
Those vulnerabilities in a lot of cases are human constructs. Like we watch these rom-coms, we see after a breakup, we see the pile of tissues and the
That's right.
crying on the couch, and the guy is
Gallon
out
of
with
ice cream.
Yeah, gallon of ice cream. The guy's out with his friends and he's completely disconnected. He's just not paying any attention. He's looking at his phone. Those are all things that make us believe that's the way things need to go after a conflict. And they really don't. Think about it. Some relationships, after they break up, they're like, woohoo, go party now. So
Yeah,
there are two ways to look at everything. And there's two ways to behave or exist after these situations. You just have to build the bigger coping skills. And I'm not trying to say that after a breakup, you should just be like it never happened. I mean,
Right.
we're still human. It still impacts us, but you do need to understand that you have more control over these emotional responses than we're taught to be aware of. We also learn as males that directness is a sign of respect, but not everybody takes it that way. And of course, with corporate decorum, that's not always the right way to go. So you need to learn these skills when you have a specific supervisor. Maybe a supervisor doesn't have those traits that likes directness. They like it a little softened
A
up.
little fluffier.
Yeah, because that is the way they're trained, not because they're softer or weaker or anything like that. It's just because that is what they're used to and that is what they're comfortable with. And a lot of times, like I said already, we think that when we're exposing stuff that we're creating a vulnerability that opens us to attack. But what I say is that think about it on the tail end. Like if I say this, what's the worst that could happen if it goes south? That is building a coping skill.
Yeah.
That is how resilience is built. When you look at a situation after it has occurred and you think, well, I'm going to handle this better next time. I'll be prepared. That is building resilience. But you can also do that beforehand. You can say, okay, before I get into this situation, I'm going to think of a worst case scenario. Not on the worry side. Not like, what if it goes bad?
Yes.
What if they yell at me? What do I do if this happens? Not on the worry side. That's also a human construct that worrying never makes anything better.
No.
Just strategize. Emotionless strategizing. It's like, all right, if they don't like it, that's their opinion.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to take it personally. I'm not going to get offended by it. I'm just going to go ahead and put out the honest word.
Yeah.
So men often communicate to solve, to report, to protect. And because of those basically human constructs, those social constructs, that's how our information is filtered. The feelings are filtered out of our speaking. And it's not because men aren't capable. It's
That's
just
right.
because that is the training. You'll always act the way you train,
Yes.
like
Yes.
we've learned before. So that's just something to think about.
So, in contrast, a lot of women received very different information as we were growing up about the best ways to communicate. So, we are.
I'll tell you how women take information.
No, you won't.
Okay, yeah, I won't.
Okay.
And guys, take that as a lesson, okay? Never tell a woman how a woman operates in any capacity. And I'm sorry to bring that up, but we read a lot of those BuzzFeed articles about worst first dates, bad communication
Signs
style.
I knew this was over.
Yeah,
things
red
like
flags
that.
and
Yeah,
all
red
that
flags.
stuff.
Yeah.
And being communication connoisseurs as we are,
That's a good word.
yeah, I always look at that stuff and it's like, really? Really? People think that this is okay? Sending inappropriate photographs to strangers is something that is going to make them say, oh, wow, this is cool. It baffles us. And I'm not trying to be judgmental here. It just baffles us. I have no information for that.
We're endlessly curious.
Yeah,
what
we're
can we
endlessly
say?
curious.
Yes.
So back to how the ladies communicate.
So, as part of our both direct and indirect training as women, we were taught that maintaining connection is very critical when we're delivering information. So we're supposed to read the room. We're supposed to make sure the person we're talking to is having an okay day, and we have to add some softness and some fluff to the message if we think it isn't going to be received well.
That's a lot of work.
So it can be a lot of work, that's true. And we're taught that the tone of the message we're sending is equally important to the content. So we have to make sure to balance those two things when we're communicating with someone else. We're taught to read rooms for safety. Safety is a big thing. We've talked about this in previous episodes as well. It's just something that never really leaves the mindset of most women that I know, always thinking about safety.
Yeah, I'll elaborate on that also. As a domestic violence awareness trainer, I heard a lot of stories that as a man I was not aware of.
Yeah.
So I'll share those when I get back to my turn, but right now the lady is speaking. So.
Further, we are taught that disagreement can cost relationships. And this is a pretty critical piece of misinformation because what it means is that we're encouraged not to disagree, even if someone is giving incorrect guidance or something is just patently wrong and might lead to somebody else getting in trouble or being placed in risk, we're taught not to bring that up, don't disagree. And we're being taught that being direct can lead to some social impact. We can be punished for being all kinds of not nice words, aggressive, too masculine, too alpha, whatever it is. So we're taught to really sit back and make sure that we're controlling our messaging.
Yeah, and if I may say two things.
You may. I will allow it.
Thank you. That's like two issues. The thing that goes back to the World War II thing is that correcting somebody when they are incorrect, when they have the wrong information, and saying even kindly like, oh no, I'm sorry, it's really this. I have had like older people blow up on me on that. Like, how dare you tell me?
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
Look,
Yeah.
You were wrong. And I had an older guy one time totally lose his stuff because I corrected him on information that I was required to give him. Like, it was literally my job.
Yikes.
To make sure that everybody had the right information. And this person, very, very insecure, very, very sort of that alpha projection kind of thing. So he was a really alpha kind of person. And I even waited. It was actually on a Zoom thing. So I even waited until everybody was off. And it was just me and that person. And I corrected them. And they lost it. I mean, they lost it like 12-year-old being told no in a Walmart that they can't have a candy bar. I was waiting for him to flop on the floor and start screaming or something. I'm sorry. But luckily, I have no concern that they'll ever watch this kind of thing. So anyways.
It's fair.
Yeah. So anyways, it was literally my job to make sure that this particular information was correct. And the person didn't even have the background to be in that position. So that kind of thing, it really makes me think you would rather have the wrong information and think you're right than having the right information and be right. And like I said, that's an insecurity that goes all the way back to World War II. You know, it's perceived as disrespect, but really what it is that the other person was incorrect, and they've created this social construct that to be wrong is less than or incompetent and that's probably the way they were regarding each other back during that time, because with World War II you don't have time to be wrong. You have to be professional. You have to know your stuff. You have to be the best of the best, and that was a focus. So any kind of trip up in that creates this little trigger thing. And then the other thing was, the second part is it's really interesting that you brought up some of the things about if you speak up or if you're direct. And it's interesting that if a male does that, those perceptions are not even created.
That's so true.
You know, which is another social construct once again. And that comes from men being very intimidated about a woman being very intelligent in their presence. And that comes from training. This is one thing I want to put out here, getting off on a mild tangent. But when we address these issues, the mansplaining and all that stuff, when we just point out the behavior or insult them, like, I don't need your mansplaining right now, those kind of things don't fix problems socially. So when people make mistakes, we pounce on them. When people are homophobic or if they're transphobic or anything like that, we're like, you're being transphobic right now, instead of, hey, I see that you have a fear. Let me explain things to you. I mean, would you like to have some more information so it's not overwhelming? I know this sounds like a fantasy, but if we could just get in that mindset that insulting people for their ignorance is what maintains that ignorance, it just makes them hide it. It just makes that person shut up. But what we want to do is we want to change minds.
Yeah.
And we want people to want to be knowledgeable of these things.
And inclusive and understanding of other people's experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And why do they have that fear in the first place? You know, it comes from a major gap in information, but it also comes from sometimes decades of generational conditioning. So we're not going to undo that by insulting somebody on the spot. So that's my little side piece there. Like, I could have said, you know, you're acting like a child when this person threw a temper tantrum. I could have easily said to the person that you're sort of being immature right now with this tantrum, and I'm not sure why you're yelling at me. Is it, especially over, tell her, am I supposed to be intimidated because of my TV screen that's screaming at me, or am I supposed to back down? The whole thing just doesn't make any sense why people get so escalated and then start yelling at one another. But, you know, with crisis intervention, the first thing I said is, hey, I'm sorry this stuff gets really stressful. Of course, the person was very embarrassed after that.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry this stuff is really stressful to you, because it's my decision if I want to take this as disrespect, that yelling and screaming at me kind of thing. But I felt sorry for the person. I really did. He's used to being in charge and being the one who knows stuff, and caught him off guard, and he felt really embarrassed about it. And that's another mismatch right there. Men have a tendency, because fear or not knowing something makes them feel less than, they project anger because it immediately shrouds that fear or that insecurity that they have, and anger looks like it's powerful.
That's right.
When it's really a lack of control, once again, as we've talked about before. If you can't control yourself, that's something you can't do. I don't know why a lot of adults don't learn right away that we tell kids to stop your crying when they start acting that way, but why is it okay for adults to act that way in professional settings, which always baffles me.
That's very true.
There was a funny story that if I may add, I'm going off on a mild tangent here. Hopefully I won't make this show 3 hours long. But there was a story that I read about this woman who was interviewed by the boss, and the boss asked the question, how do you feel about emotional responses in a meeting or people get escalated? And she gave him her answer, and then she got hired. And then like 2 weeks into being on the job, one of the coworkers came around and said, what happened at your interview? And the lady's like, I don't know. What are you asking? She said, the boss is acting different. What did he ask you? Oh, she said, he asked me this question about how I feel about people that get explosive in meetings. And I told him I don't have any time for that. That's highly immature and unprofessional behavior. And I wouldn't tolerate it if I worked at a place like that. And that boss changed his entire way of handling meetings just because of that one statement.
It's because of an identification.
Exactly. So it's always more competent to speak with a calm tone. And we should always be, I believe, we should always be under the idea that advice, information freely given,
freely ignored.
And if you don't like it, that's fine. It's our insecurities that make us escalate and feel we have to project and we have to push and we have to be louder and you need to listen to me. That creates those imbalances. So sorry, I sort of went off on a tangent and took over the whole show.
It's okay. You didn't take over the whole show.
Back to women.
So what comes from all of these differences in the way men and women communicate is that we often communicate to sustain connection in addition to giving information. And a simple question that we're asking is rarely just a question. We're trying to read the room. We're trying to check tone, trying to make sure the relationship is still in balance. So our communication tends to be a little bit more deliberate and in some cases a little bit less frequent because there's so many things we're trying to work through to get that message out.
Yeah, it's got to be exhausting.
So it looks very different commonly for men and women when they communicate.
It does.
Yeah.
So these particular mismatches, what are some of the examples of what these mismatches can contribute to?
So these mismatches can create some communication challenges. One person's communicating to solve a problem. The other one is communicating to connect. Sometimes those priorities clash and both people don't end up walking away from the conversation feeling like they got what they needed from that.
Yeah, I hear this a lot, and I'm not trying to be sexist in any way. It's just my exposure. But I hear like men primarily try to fix things.
Yeah.
Whereas women just want to be heard. And I've even had guys say, well, why doesn't she just tell me that? Well, she doesn't realize that's what she needs. She just knows that when she expresses a problem that she would prefer to be listened to and related to. And I've even heard people say, I just want to be understood.
Yeah.
And understanding isn't somebody else talking. Understanding is somebody saying, that's where we do that paraphrase, you know? So you're saying this is getting on your nerves because of this. But like I've said in a previous episode, I have developed a little voice in the back of my head that when someone's talking, did they ask for advice? Did they ask for advice? Did they ask for advice? And if it's no, I just sit there and go, oh yeah, I can see that. Oh, that's a lot. Yeah. And it's sincere. Those aren't scripted responses. Those are just me showing that I am paying attention in that moment.
Yeah, and as you're getting to know someone new, sometimes it's helpful as you're starting. Let's say I'm coming in to vent to Todd, and we haven't known each other that long. There's nothing wrong, and it's completely in the honest voice framework to say, something happened to me at work today. I just need to vent about it. I don't really want to talk about solutions. I just kind of want to talk it through with you, and just let me vent for a minute.
And that's the prep we talked about earlier. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. But the main thing is that with these two conflicting styles, we both have our own way we want to express to each other. So just the fact that we want to talk to each other is an indicator we want to get closer, right? But our training, our conditioning creates that mismatch.
Yeah, very true. So one person hears a problem and reaches to fix it, and the other one gets a fix but doesn't feel heard because maybe that's not what I wanted. Maybe I did just want to vent and complain about something, and Todd thinks of a solution for it, so he gives it to me, and I'm like, I just needed you to tell me this sucks. That was really all I wanted, was just to hear that's a tough day.
Yeah.
So you end up feeling like you didn't communicate well when really just a few easy steps could fix that for us.
Yeah, but the main thing is that with our conflict, neither one of us is wrong. That's just
just
our programming. This is how we've always been taught to handle conversations, not just with male or female. We don't even think of that. We don't even think when I talk to some ladies, I should talk like this. When I talk to some men, I should talk like this. We just talk. This is our style. Problem. This is what we do. And we just talk about it like this is the way we're supposed to talk about it. But that goes back to intent and impact.
And impact, yep.
And you look at these things, a lot of these problems, they come from a really sweet place.
They
We
do.
want to help. We look at somebody and we're like, we don't want them to hurt like that.
Yeah.
So here's a fix. Stop hurting. There you go.
All done.
All done.
I did so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe I'm helping, and you completely feel dismissed, unheard, skipped over.
And what we don't realize is that neither one of us had the training when we started to be on the same page, but with a little bit of prep work and a little bit of learning each other, we can make sure that whatever it is that I need, that I feel safe to communicate it, and that we understand enough about each other's preferences to be on the same page.
Exactly. Yeah, so we're going to talk about a few things. We don't want to offend anybody. These are all based on communication styles that basically feedback from others.
Yeah.
And also the same kind of things that show up in the BuzzFeed articles. And I highly recommend BuzzFeed articles can give you a lot of good information on communication,
A lot of what not to do.
Yeah, what not to. I was
lot
just
of
going
what
to say
not
the
to,
same thing. So I'm going to start off with a real common one because I personally have had women vent on me. And like I said, I was a domestic violence awareness and prevention trainer for the Navy for a little while. So one of the typical things, and I have been in a 7-Eleven before where I actually triggered old Todd one time because the guy in front of me, there was a cashier, you could tell she was going off shift and she was tired. And she looked tired. And the guy in front of me was like, hey, come on, how about a smile? And man, the look on her face even scared me, but this was earlier, Todd. So I immediately said, I don't think she's here to entertain you this morning. And the guy's like, he just looked at me and I'm like, oh, I don't know why I did that, because it never helps to intervene in another conversation with strangers.
True.
in
I will
public.
tell you that the core of me does appreciate that,
Okay,
the
yeah.
intention of old Todd, but you are right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are right. He wasn't
Yeah,
going to say, oh my gosh, you're right, I shouldn't do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. The public service announcement. Don't correct people in public.
My gosh,
Especially now. You're just opening yourself up to danger. If you want to say, I don't agree with you, I'm going to do it. Think of what would happen if they turned around and said, mind your own business, and they just started screaming at you. That possibility exists
It
because
does.
you have no authority over another. So there's no reason to correct other people.
Pick your battles.
Yeah,
Really
pick your battles.
Yeah.
You're not going to change that person, and that is your honest, kind intent. Is
Yep.
if I point this out, maybe they'll change it, but they don't. They just get meaner about it.
Yeah.
So just a little public service announcement. So back to the how about a smile. Many men think that's a friendly gesture. Many men think, hey, I'm just being friendly. But think about intent and impact. That doesn't matter. Doesn't
Right,
matter what
right.
you think you're doing if she takes it wrong. And this is going on decades, if not a century of training. Okay. Usually what happens in those situations, hey, how about a moment? Or let's talk for a moment. And the lady says, I'm not interested. Usually guys get really mean. They get, I'm just trying to be friendly. It's okay. Well, that statement right there did not make me suddenly go, oh yeah, okay. I didn't catch that at first. So think about that. But usually guys take it personally. And I'm not sure, where on the planet we thought that everyone needs to be attracted to us and be willing to talk to us in those moments. So if you get angry because a person did not want to engage with you in that moment, that's identifying a really big insecurity on your part. So getting angry about it and posturing, you're not only eliminating the opportunity of connecting with that person altogether, even if they didn't want to, but you are making it worse for everybody else.
True.
You're making it worse for the guy who respects people's boundaries, who knows that that's inappropriate, and that's where it just keeps getting perpetuated. But the main thing is that those stories, that danger, that's passed along. As a culture, you all know all these stories. Everybody does.
Absolutely.
And the first thing and women have told me this, the first thing women think about when a guy approaches them is like, what is he going to do when I just want to go home and I just want to get out of this conversation? So you're literally like bringing a stressful situation to a woman in that moment that she doesn't want to deal with because she's concerned about the outcome. Are you going to follow her home? Are you going to continue harassing her? Are you going to see that she has a boundary, but now you feel you need to explain yourself, which is still further pushing that boundary?
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah,
It's a really
if
slippery
she's
slope.
not interested, the best thing you could do for everybody is just say, ma'am, I'm sorry to have bothered you. You take care. Have a good day.
Yep.
And walk on.
Yep.
That will be the most amazing thing probably that happens in that woman's day all day long. Am I wrong about
No,
that?
you're not wrong at all. And
Yeah.
I think it's common that most decent men don't have any awareness of exactly how often women have to incorporate the concepts of safety into all of our interactions. So you might see someone that you think you might be interested in, and how about a smile might feel like the best opener to a conversation, and you may be genuinely unaware of all the things that filter through a woman's mind when that happens. I am not here for your entertainment.
Yeah, that's the first thing. How about a smile? What you're saying is perform for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're pleasing to my eyes.
That's
I would
right.
like further entertainment now. Let's
Exactly.
spruce it up with a smile.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how they see it. And we're really not trying to call anybody out here.
Oh, no.
You know, we're trying to do this preventatively. We're not trying to say you're being a jerk if you do this stuff.
Yeah.
It's just you don't know. You don't
Right.
realize your gesture, intent, and impact. Your intent is to be friendly, to say a nice thing, brighten up this person's day. But if that particular language is interpreted in another way, that's not your fault. One thing that I always say in crisis intervention is that no matter what my skills are as a person who knows how to de-escalate others, if a person's been traumatized by a 6 foot tall
Yep.
bald guy with glasses, my communication style is not going to override any of that.
That's right.
Any of that training. There's nothing I'm going to do to connect to that person, no matter how kind I am
no
being.
fault of your own.
No
Exactly.
matter, I'm a nice guy. Don't say that one either.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
If you have to say it, then that's suspect.
It-
right?
it is.
Another
It
little
is.
tidbit there. But the main thing you want to remember is that is just an introduction for a woman to have to protect herself further. The fact of the matter is, and in this day and age, that you approaching a woman in the gym and and ladies, put in the comments, you're full of it, Todd, stay in your lane. Let Carolsue do most of the talking about this. But like I said, I was a instructor on this kind of information, and Carolsue's letting me talk right now. So. So but the main thing is that your approach immediately triggers a response of how am I going to get out of this?
Yeah.
The words are usually not even considered.
Oh,
It's
agreed.
just a man
Yep.
is talking to me. They're expecting a response. And that's another thing. If you're trying to truly be kind, it should not be transactional. It should not be conditional. If that person does not want to engage, getting mean with them, you're only perpetuating the problem. And I hate to say it, but getting angry at someone because they don't comply with you, that's some kind of coping skill that you need to develop as well. It's showing a considerable insecurity on your part that you need people to respond to you the way you want
Yeah.
them to. And that's pretty problematic as well.
Yeah. And part of the reason we're extending a lot of explanations and background about why these things are so problematic is because sometimes, like in the case of you're a woman putting gas in your car at the gas station and a guy says, hey, how about a smile? And then the justification later might be, well, if she didn't like that, she should have said something. And another way that safety shows up is that in those kind of interactions, it is not safe always for a woman to put boundaries down in that moment.
Yeah.
Because you never know when someone is going to take that perceived rejection, even though that's not what it is, but it's perceived as a rejection, and escalate from there. So as humans, we don't often get good feedback when the way we're trying to build relationships is not helpful or is damaging.
That's a really good point. I mean, I'd like to see a situation, what I think would be like the most fantastical, mature response is like guy walks up to a lady and says, hey, how about a smile? And she says, hey, I'm just going to explain something to you and see how you take it. A lot of times, a comment like that doesn't land very well. And women don't really appreciate being told to change their appearance because that's what you're doing.
Yep.
In that case, you're
That's
asking
right.
them to change the appearance. They don't like that kind of stuff. So try something else. So let's try this again. I would really, that would be like the ultimate adult communication thing, not, hey, how about a smile? Back off, creep, you know, as a response, or just complete ignoring. It would be cool. It goes back to that homophobic thing. Teach instead of just immediately make them feel bad.
Yeah.
And you're really I'm not trying to say you need to accommodate in any capacity, but if you want to take the moment, if you want to basically expand that goodwill towards society kind of thing and teach along the way, it'd be good if you find their tone being kind or whatever, take that second chance and say, let's try this again. You know, where are you from? You know,
Absolutely.
something like that.
Yeah. And again, with the context of safety, this is when it is safe and appropriate to do so.
Exactly.
If it is a one-off in a random grocery store or something and it's someone you're never going to see again, probably not the time to worry about educating some stranger. But if this is someone who you're trying to build a relationship with, or if it's a context where you have a little time and it feels safe, then try to reach back in and say, hey, if you're trying to approach me, that's not a way that I like.
Yeah.
So it's much better, I think, to just say, hey, how's your day going, or something like that.
Exactly.
How about a
Yeah,
smile?
that's the best one.
Yeah.
Asking someone to perform, commenting on their appearance, those kind of things, they have a potential to not land well.
Yeah.
And if they have that potential, then don't do it.
Then don't try it.
So what are some of the key areas where these type of mismatches occur?
So they can start as early as the very first date. So as you're getting to know each other, and of course you don't have any idea, most likely, about each other's communication style. And so one person may leave feeling dismissed, the other one may feel rejected, and before the relationship even has a chance to build, people have these incorrect assumptions because they haven't been able to communicate that information to each other yet, and you might miss an opportunity.
Yeah, that's why I was bringing up the idea about the super adult conversation.
Yes.
You know, if it could just be emotionless and judgmentless.
Yes.
Like I had this idea one time.
I'm glad. I was just going to ask you to bring this up.
Yeah,
Yes.
I had this idea one time. Like I wanted to open up the Honest Boys bar. So we'd have like our rules all on the walls, you know, like no performance, no putting on a front, just honest interactions, and even have 10 top conversation starters on the wall for helping people. It's not to be fake. It's just we really don't have any training how to communicate. But the interesting thing is that we don't have any training with a new person.
Yes.
And that's the one thing that we make assumptions and neglect the most, is that you could have all this experience talking your whole life, but the new person, you don't have any experience with them. And we take all this baggage and poor training from the past, and we try to fit that other person into it, which is really interesting and really problematic because this is probably the first time you've ever heard anything like that or considered that. And that's really what the primary purpose of our show is for people to listen to it, even if it's in the background or while you're driving, and just go, I never thought of it that way.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Just to reduce your tension, give you an alternative perspective. So you can say, well, I can get offended, or I can just accept that they don't really know what they're doing. And those are two totally different ways to look at things, but it's a choice for almost every situation.
True.
Could I get offended, or can I choose to just understand that they don't have my communication skills, which would probably even be more accurate?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
So we also see these communication differences in marriages where one partner may feel unheard and the other feels attacked. You may have been on the receiving end of two very different stories after a breakup. So you hear one person tell you one story, and then you hear the other partner. It's like, holy cow, it's like those are two different relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. And think of it this way, the personalization we put on these stories too, like say, hey, how about a smile? That lady's going to walk home and say something like, some creep came up to me, and immediately perpetuate. You could have been the nicest person in the world and really thought in that moment that person was looking at you, or she wanted an introduction or something, and now you're turned into this monster that you weren't. And that's where the stories get perpetuated. So that's where those communication mismatches can be really problematic, because they also embed themselves in the stories that we continue to tell and pass along to each other.
That is so true.
Yeah. The thing you want to do is you want to be open to other people's styles. You know, a typical thing in the giving advice when I really just want to be heard kind of thing, you know, it's really easy for two people to walk away and tell their own story, like we were just saying, you know, with breakups and things like that. The lady goes and says, I was trying to tell him how I was feeling, and he just kept trying to solve it. And then the guy is saying, well, she came home with these problems and she wouldn't let me help her. So it's exactly the same thing. First of all, if someone says they wouldn't let you help, that's their choice.
Yeah.
If I may say. So don't force your assistance. That's something we brought up in an earlier show about, especially with people that are depressed. You offer from a very sweet and warm place in your heart. You offer these solutions. Let's get outside. Let's take a walk. But they don't have the motivation to do it. And we immediately fall back with, fine, be that way. I just won't give you any advice anymore. And that just makes the whole situation worse. And really, that's sort of showing that it was more important for you to feel good about helping them than it was about actually making them feel good.
Yeah.
Because you're hurt by them not accepting that transaction that you were giving them in a moment.
Yeah, and I need to take just a moment to just acknowledge that one thing that you do that's really helpful in those situations where I have a problem is that I can tell that a possible solution is formulating in the back of Todd's brain, because he's a helper. That's his whole thing. But he'll say, did you want advice on this right now, or did you just want me to listen? Because his brain is ready to give advice or to make a suggestion if that's what I want, but he'll check in to make sure that is what I want in the moment before doling out the advice.
Yeah, and you assist that as well. Like we said, we use a lot of prep.
Yeah,
hey,
we do.
I just need you to listen right now.
Yeah.
Because it was really frustrating. But the one thing I really want to stress again, and we are repetitive sometimes, but that's part of our style because we are trainers. We're not therapists.
Yeah.
So the only way to get that shift from short-term memory to long-term memory is sometimes repetition. Yeah,
absolutely.
So we provide this information over and over again. But the one thing we really want to stress here, and we're going to do a whole show on shame,
yes,
is that calling somebody out or cutting them down for a poor approach doesn't make anything better, especially within relationships, because shame is all about making the other person feel bad about themselves.
Yes.
So you're literally making them feel bad because of something that you feel bad about or you're frustrated about, but you're not correcting anything. You're literally just tearing them down. I like to go so far as to say you're impacting their mental health. Your whole focus now is to make them feel bad.
Yeah.
And that is like a primary approach that we all use.
It's so common. And it takes the conversation very quickly from I didn't like what you said to I don't like who you are. The power
Yeah.
of shame is that it goes straight to the core of your identity and just stops everything in its tracks. So it's very powerful. It's insidious. We don't always realize that the way we're communicating is conveying shame to somebody else. And so we have to be extra mindful about that.
Yeah, and giving them a chance to regroup can also improve your communication as well. So when people do slip up and say, hey, I'd really like you to just, the I statements, not stop interrupting me or any of that kind of stuff. I'd really like you to hear me out on this. I want to stay in this conversation, but I really need you to listen for me right now. This is what I need from you.
Yeah.
That can be really helpful.
And another tool that I have to say has been really helpful for us in our communication, and this is as you're getting to know each other and building that trust, is the concept of the clean slate, which I have to tell you is a Todd concept that I thought was just nonsense. When he started saying it at the beginning of our relationship, I was like, you say that as if there's a clean slate, but there won't be.
Yeah.
But there is. So when you offer it, if you have a communication misstep and you want to say, all right, I was really interested in you and I'd like to get to know you better, can we just clean slate this whole thing and start over? But if you're offering it, you have to follow through and actually provide a clean slate. And both people have to be willing to shake off the original bad interaction and try again.
Yeah, and if it's solved, it's solved.
Yeah.
And if it's solved, that means there's no reason to bring it up later.
Right.
Okay, because our premise also is if something comes back up later, that means we didn't honestly
Yes.
and accurately solve it before. So if you're bringing stuff up from the past, usually you're trying to make somebody feel bad about it. So the clean slate is that you don't make another person walk on eggshells because of their mistake afterwards. You don't like, well, I don't want to say anything wrong around you because you just might get mad again.
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't make a person learn new behavior. So you encourage that new environment. We talked about before, you can't stop doing things. You need to find an alternative behavior to make that other behavior dissipate. So if you're constantly basically regurgitating that problem over and over again, I use that term on purpose because it's gross. But so if you're constantly bringing it back up, even indirectly or as a side comment, you did not solve the problem. And you think it's an effective deterrent. That's where it comes from. You think that if I remind them, then they're not going to do it again. But it doesn't. You just need to train both of us. We need to train both of us to get off of that and make it a real clean slate. A clean slate means it doesn't come up again because you solved it, not just because one person shut another person down.
That's right.
But because you agree that there's a solution, and you also have come to the agreement that it doesn't need to be brought up again.
And if you find out that you were hoping it was resolved, but it wasn't, then that's on us to bring up again as well. Like, look, I really thought I was past this issue, but I'm still feeling some resentment about this. And can we reopen this conversation a little more? But again, honesty, not passive aggression, not digs. It's just an open conversation about something that may be troubling us more than we thought.
Oh, yeah. And another thing, when those things are unsolved and they come back up, I just want to let you know now is saying, I thought we already fixed that.
Oh, yeah.
That's not a deterrent at the moment, okay? Because obviously you did not.
Not a healthy one.
Yeah. That's just a pressure statement to get another person to back down. Well, I thought we already went all over that. And it's usually with an angry tone, which shows you're definitely trying to manipulate or intimidate the other person into backing down.
Yes.
So, guys, I'm sorry. I know I'm calling out a lot of things. And please, ladies, do not use our videos to shame somebody. Yeah. One time I had this conversation with a guy, and he was talking about the mismatches between him and his wife. And I mentioned that old Dr. Gray book about men are from Mars and women are from Venus thing, because it identified that it's two different types of people. You know? And I'm not really endorsing that book right now, but at the time, while I was in the Navy, I thought that was a good book.
Groundbreaking, right? Yeah.
So the guy ended up reading that book, and then he used that book to point out every mistake his wife was making.
Oh, that wasn't what the book was there for.
Actually made it worse with that advice. So don't sit your person down in whatever direction and say, I need you to watch this right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just share it. And it'd probably be better to just play it on the radio, since we stream on podcast now, to just play it on the radio, just sort of like nonchalantly. And
just passively, like you don't even realize it's what's playing.
Yeah, so hopefully the other person hadn't seen this already and says, I know what you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we want to offer just a few different ways to think about the communication differences between men and women. Most communication between men and women is not malicious.
Yeah.
Most of it is not. It's usually two very well-intentioned people using different playbooks and assuming that the other has the same one. And those assumptions can get very dangerous, but it's very normal. It's normal to think this is how my brain works. Why isn't this how his brain works?
Yeah, and if I may say, the mismatch is misunderstanding, insecurity, so emotional response to that insecurity.
Exactly.
And that's the thing that you have to interrupt. Mismatches are there. Those are a product of our conditioning. It's nobody's fault.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, I didn't understand it that way. Thanks for clarifying.
Yep.
Which we're going to give you our last 3 tools after we wrap up this section on exactly how to deal with conversations that are potentially conflicting.
Yeah. So understanding that we come from usually very different training, both directly and indirectly, can help us shift from what is wrong with you, why do you communicate that way, to what did we each learn that is showing up in this conversation right now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that's how we can shift into newer and better, more healthy habits.
Yeah, it's just that hyper defensiveness that we're all in that we brought up a previous show. Like, we're all just on the edge. Like, hey, how you doing? It's like, what'd you mean by that? You know,
Right.
we're at this place. And like I said, it's because we are in basically a whirlwind of negativity right now with the media, the news, the shows, movies with all kinds of conflict. So we get conditioned. Like we said, it gets on you.
It gets on you.
Yeah, so we just need to back up. We feel that negative feeling. Let's analyze it for a second.
Yeah.
Let's pause. Let's say, okay, they might not be malicious here. There might be an alternative.
Yeah. Back to that benefit of the doubt that we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about 3 tools that actually do work to help build communication between people of different genders. Curiosity is a big favorite in the McGee household.
It is.
We really enjoy this. So it is true, genuine curiosity about, when you said to me, how about a smile? What were you hoping to gain? Were you just trying to open the door for a conversation? A little curiosity about what the intention was there.
Yeah, wouldn't that be a cool response to it?
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And that's going to be hard for some people because a lot of us have locked our insecurity to our knowledge. I actually had a coworker one time that I made a joke to because she said something about antisocial. And I make this joke in CIT all the time because we talk about antisocial personality disorder. And then I point to the board and I'm like, and in case you want to try to use antisocial when somebody says, hey, you want to go out? And you're like, no, I don't really feel like it tonight. And they're like, fine, be antisocial. They're actually being asocial.
Ooh, that's right.
I know. And I said that as a joke. And I was just trying to be funny because I thought we had that relationship. And she goes, I hate it when I'm wrong. And I'm like, I was just kidding. And we have that now.
We do.
We wrote a whole book on it, the knowledge insecurity loop. We'll pop it up on the screen.
That's right. We have magic tools now.
Yeah, where you're literally offended by, like that guy who blew up when I corrected him. You're literally offended by getting new information, which causes people to not want to give you new information, which keeps you without that information. And that's what the loop is.
That's the loop.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So we really need to work on, I want to say, stop being offended by our intelligence gaps. They're not really intelligence gaps. They're generational learning gaps is what they are. I was never exposed to anybody that talked that way.
Right.
We need to not be so offended by that and want to take in that information and develop those relationships where people feel comfortable saying, I don't know, explain that to you. I've never been in that situation before. Tell me more.
Yeah. So curiosity can go a long way here. So can kindness. Yeah. Again, choosing our tone when we're trying to explore what somebody else's intention might have been, or when we're explaining the impact that a statement has had on us. A little bit of kindness helps to reduce defensiveness and make people more receptive to the information that you're giving them.
Yeah.
That changes the whole conversation.
Yeah, and that's a big deal. When we were doing research on the dating book, which came out this week, when we try not to over promote these books. We're here to do a podcast.
We're very excited about them, though. We're very excited.
We're not a 40-minute to 1 hour ad.
Yeah.
But one of the things we found is that, believe it or not, one of the key indicators in a first meet or any kind of opening conversation, one of the primary identifiers that it can go to the next stage or continue is kindness.
Yeah.
It's not performance. It's not how cool you are. It's not how much you know. It's not what you're bragging
physical
about.
Appearance.
It's not your, and it's really not physical appearance, which is really interesting also in our research because we found out that it's interesting that the number one concept that a lot of us go on, physical appearance, is the least contributing to a sustaining relationship.
Lasting relationship.
Yeah,
it's true.
isn't that interesting? So, sorry, I get a little excited about the data sometimes.
We like your excitement.
Yeah, so still you. Keep
Honesty is also obviously a very critical tool here. So name what you meant without making the other person guess. If you're saying I'm fine in a manipulative way to try to get someone to chase down what you mean, that's not honest. Instead, just say, look, I don't know how I'm feeling right now. I'm a little overwhelmed. I just need some time. name what it is that you're feeling so that the other person has that respectful response from you and knows what you need from them right now. Even if all you need right now is space.
Yeah.
At least they know it, so they're not guessing and we're not adding to the tension in the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. So those are your three main things. Just curiosity, kindness, and honesty. And if you can lead with that, your conversations will be much more fulfilling and longer.
Yes.
You won't get cut off and
and
beat it,
won't
creep.
walk away. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so some tools for this week. Think about the last miscommunication that you had with someone of a different gender. And as you're thinking about that conversation, think about what you assumed they meant about something that maybe you took a little bit negatively or were uncomfortable with, and what might that have actually meant? What might they have actually meant when they're coming from a different background? So try to see it from an honest assessment of your own perspective and an exploration of another perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not weakness. Asking people for more information. And it's funny because I naturally do this now, and I can see the look on people's faces like, you really want to hear what you really are asking that question? I'm like, yeah, I didn't get it. And that's not a weakness. I'm very comfortable with my ignorance. I don't know everything.
That's true.
I don't know how a stranger thinks. I don't know what they've been through. I don't know what day they've had. Even coworkers. We don't know how much we know of them.
Absolutely not.
A lot of people have this persona or have these boundaries at work. So all these assumptions are really hurting us. And we do that. It's very strange. We fill in the gaps with just stuff that we have no proof over.
It's so true.
And then we act on it, which is really strange also.
Yeah.
So think about it. It's much better to say, what did you mean by that, than have a conflict and not realize it till 3 days later when you're stewing in it, and you've been angry because you misunderstood something. So that happens a lot as well. I mean, that can happen in the household, especially if the person's going, I'm fine, when they're not, and you're going, okay, she's fine. And then you both go to work.
Yeah.
And then you come home and you're eating dinner. And it's like, are you okay? You're not talking. And she goes, I'm fine. And then you go to bed. And the next day, she's still fine. Sorry.
Is she fine? I don't think she's fine anymore.
No, I'm starting to think she's not really fine.
Exactly.
Yeah. So since this is men's and women's communication separately, men, I'm going to ask you to this week think about your conversations, especially when you're having it with women, and think about your expectations, think about your assumptions, think about all the things that you do to fill in the gaps when you don't know and how they can be very incorrect. And think about being curious and asking more questions. Also think about that kindness does not require reciprocity. You can be kind. It's like one joke that I make in CIT all the time is how many people hold the door for somebody. And then when they go through, if they don't acknowledge them, how many people also go, you're welcome, and scream it across a Wawa or something like that. So screaming across a store is not going to make that person in that moment go, oh, I need to be more polite. I need to change my life now to be more considerate of others that are holding the door. Just hold the door for people.
Yeah.
Have a kind gesture with no requirement of they say hi to you, acknowledge you. Because once again, I used to do that. So I can tell you right away, I used to be offended when I contribute to some kind of situation and I did not get acknowledged for it. That's my programming. You know, everything's reciprocal. So just be kind, hold the door, not expect anything in return, and be proud of yourself. You know that you're different than most people, that you don't require anything. So that's one thing I'm going to ask from the guy's side to work on. Don't try to fill in the blanks. Always be kind. If the situation doesn't go your way, hey, I'm sorry I bothered you, and move on.
Yeah. For women this week, remembering that we feel often like we're doing a lion's share of the work, that we're coming into these conversations with two very different levels of training, different models, different expectations of us. So when you're talking to a man, if he comes off a little bit strong in your opinion, or if you're feeling like the directness is a little too harsh, then use your I statements to say, hey, I'm feeling just a little bit attacked, or maybe I'm not taking this right. Can we start over? Name what you're feeling, but make an attempt to keep the conversation going and reset the expectations and try again.
Yeah, and I will add in, and if that boundary is not respected, then the conversation's over.
Beautiful.
If you try that thing, that super adult conversation, say, hey, let's try this again, and they make a comment that you don't like, and say, okay, we tried.
We tried.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And don't be afraid of that.
We appreciate you so much for hanging out with us today. If this conversation brought up anything for you and you'd like to share it with us, we always love to hear from our listeners. So please feel free to reach out either to Todd separately or me separately or together at talk@honestvoice.net. We just love to get your feedback and learn what else you'd like to hear from us.
Yeah. And until then, take care.
Have a great week.
Bye now.